GALP.
Hey guys, welcome to GALP, it's your boy Bish, and today we're going to be talking about Yakuza series, otherwise known as the Like A Dragon series, which is its official name. So we're going to be talking about Like A Dragon Gaiden, which is interesting. I'm not used to the name Like A Dragon. I kind of prefer using the name Yakuza because that's what the game series was known up until Like A Dragon Ishin. That was the first game which was a spin-off to sort of have that name fully. Because obviously there was Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is sort of maybe introducing it. It's basically Yakuza 7. But anyway, Like a Dragon 7, great game. We spoke about it on GALP. Jacob did a fantastic review roundup. But I wanted to do a episode covering the Yakuza series, or the Like a Dragon series, going through, because not many of you guys know this, but we've been covering the Like a Dragon series for a long time now. The first one that we actually had for review was Yakuza 0, and we got that from SEGA. Shout out to SEGA. And we also did Kiwami, Yakuza 6, and Yakuza Kiwami 2. And that was on the website. That was back in the day. And that's, I know it sounds a bit weird. Why didn't you guys do a full GALP episode? It's probably because of the fact that we only had one code at the time. We didn't get the opportunity to do multiple codes in terms of reviews and stuff. And I wasn't really into the Yakuza series at the time. And you might be wondering why. I think I was in my sort of Koei fanboy era. And to be fair with you, I was just getting into other styles of games, right? So I was really heavily invested in Persona. I was just getting into Fire Emblem. There were so many other games that I didn't experience, and Yakuza, or the Like a Dragon series, wasn't one that I was interested at the time. Not because of the setting or anything like that. I think I was mainly put off by what it was. What do I mean by that? I was put off by the fact that it is an interesting game. I sound like I'm going to shoot myself in the foot. We went straight into this and we even didn't talk about our sponsors. Shout out to Crunchyroll and Sugoi, by the way. But yeah, anyway, so it was interesting in terms of gameplay, and that was something that I didn't quite like. I didn't like the gameplay. I didn't like the combat mechanics. And to be fair with you, after Jacob's review of Yakuza Like a Dragon, or Like a Dragon 7, I was interested in the game series, and I had my Xbox, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and play this. In 2022, I decided I'm going to play Yakuza Like a Dragon. And so I started with the original Yakuza. I started with Yakuza Kiwami, which is obviously a remake, and Kiwami 2 as well. To be fair with you, actually, that's a lie. I didn't start with Kiwami and Kiwami 2 because they weren't on Game Pass at the time. I started with Yakuza 3, I think. I didn't quite like it because it was like remastered. It wasn't necessarily remade, but it was remastered, and it was like interesting, but I was like, okay. It feels like a very old game, if that makes sense. It feels like a PlayStation 3 game. It feels a little bit outdated. So I sort of stopped playing it because of that, and I didn't even get past into like the first hour of the game. It was just like very boring to me. I couldn't get into the story. I was like, ugh, what is this? Let me just play something else, right? So instead, what I decided to do, spoke to Jacob, and he was like, no, forget about those games. You can always go back to them. Play Like a Dragon, because you're not going to necessarily need it in terms of story, right? The story is there, and you can effectively play Like a Dragon as an independent game. You don't need to have played any of the other 6 Yakuza games and its spin-offs. You don't need to play them. You could play Like a Dragon independently, so I did that, and I loved it. And I was like, okay, cool. This is the first time, actually, I played the game in English dub because I knew my boy KG was going to be the voice of Ichiban, so I watched it, I played it in dub, and it was fantastic. English dub was quite good. Like a Dragon then became just a fantastic series that I wanted to delve deeper in. And so, what was the next game that I decided to play? I decided to play Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, which recently came out on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, PC, Xbox One, Xbox Series of consoles as well. Before we get into it, let me talk about the disclaimer for you new folks. GALP is a monthly gaming discussion podcast under the GAL network. We talk about all sorts of games, from big AAA titles all the way to awesome indie games as well, but our forte is Japanese games, so expect that a lot. We can be found anywhere that you get your podcasts. That means Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Play Music as well, or Google Podcasts. Remember, if you want to join in on the fun, then you can follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at GAL Podcasts, or you can join our Discord, www.gallifepodcast.com youtube.com/discord. Big shout out to our sponsors, Crunchyroll and Sugoimart. And yeah, if you guys give us a 5-star review, we'd really appreciate it, and be sure to share the show with anyone that you think would like it. Anyway, back on to the point. Yakuza series, formerly known Yakuza series, aka Like a Dragon. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get used to calling it Like a Dragon. It's going to be very difficult for me to be calling it Like a Dragon. That's its official name now. I'll try. I might slip and call it Yakuza every once in a while. So guys, please forgive me. Anyway, back onto the point. Like a Dragon Gaiden. Gaiden, I believe, meaning side story. I'm not too sure on that, but I think that's what it means. Anyway, besides the point. So it's a spin-off game from the Like a Dragon series, and it takes place across 3 different games. So Yakuza 6, Yakuza Like a Dragon, and Like a Dragon 8, or Infinite Wealth, which is coming out in January. So I don't know much about the story because I don't really know Kazuma Kiryu. I didn't know much about him. The game does a good job of giving you some level of backstory and some references to previous games if you haven't played them before. I'm playing this game as someone who has never played the Like a Dragon series before or the Yakuza series before. So other than Like a Dragon or Yakuza 7, right? So I haven't played the games before. I don't know anything about Kazuma Kiryu other than the memes, right? His white suit or his cream colored suit or his gray suit. What color is the suit, by the way? Is it white? I think it's like a white suit. He wears a white suit, white shoes, and a red shirt. Yeah, typical Yakuza styling there. Anyway, besides the point. So I don't know much about Kazuma Kiryu other than he's like the poster boy for the Yakuza games. Apparently he died, and then you find out in this game, it's not spoilers by the way, because it's literally like the first 10 minutes of the game. You find out he lived. He makes a deal with these special agents to work for them. In return, they fake his death for obvious reasons. I'm not going to spoil that bit. You guys can go on from there. But it's quite interesting because the game has all it needs in terms of a Yakuza game. And I actually quite liked the combat in this game as well. I know it sounds really dumb, but because I didn't quite like the original Yakuza series, because when I was playing the games, I did mention it before, the games kind of felt outdated, especially like the remakes, which sounds a bit weird. I didn't play Kiwami or Kiwami 2 or any of those games like that, but I played Yakuza 3 and it felt so outdated, and I was like, no, not going to play this. And the reason why I did that was because I had Game Pass, and I don't think Kiwami or Kiwami 2 was on Game Pass at the time. And that was a lovely thing. I know a lot of people sort of shit on Game Pass and shit on Xbox and things like that, but for me, the Xbox is my Yakuza machine in the same way that the Vita was like my Persona machine, that kind of stuff. So for me, I love the Yakuza series because of Like a Dragon, because of Yakuza 7. This is such a confusing episode, by the way, just because I'm interchanging between Like a Dragon and Yakuza. So I'm going to call it Like a Dragon from now on, and I'm going to call Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon 7, I guess. So anyway, I might slip. Anyway, besides the point. So this game is set in Sotenbori district of Osaka, and there's some other districts that you visit as well. In the beginning of the game, you start off in like Yokohama, the main area within Like a Dragon 7. It's available within certain parts of the story, mainly the beginning, and that's how you kind of know that there is this link and it's set within this time period of Like a Dragon 7. Because at the beginning, you go to the homeless camp and you basically go near the camp, near the tent that Ichiban got healed in from the guy. I forgot his name. I feel so bad. The name of the character. What's his name? Adachi Koichi, which is interesting actually, come to think of it. So anyway, besides the point. So this game, I don't believe has an English dub. I'm not sure if it does. A lot of people are like talking about it. It's a side game from what I remember. I don't think Like a Dragon Gaiden has an English dub. At least there was no option for an English dub. Or maybe I didn't check in the comment in the thing. It's very interesting as well because this is a side game and it was priced at £50 on the Xbox Marketplace, which is very interesting because full priced games nowadays are at like 70, 75. So I was thinking, okay, this must be a short game. When I first started playing the game, I was on chapter 2, and by that point I'd spent a good 40 hours. Why is that? Because there's so many things to do in this game. There's the Akame missions, who is basically, I don't know, it's kind of like the reverse of like a Yakuza boss. She helps the community, and you need these Akame points to basically level up. So you can pay to level up certain moves and certain features in the game and all that kind of stuff. Like if you wanted health upgrades, attack upgrades, defense upgrades, that kind of stuff, and your gadgets as well, because, by the way, I forgot to mention that you are technically a Secret Service agent. That's pretty cool. Because you have those gadgets, you have this sort of method of upgrading through paying Akame points and yen, which is very interesting because the game almost forces you to do these side missions so that you can get enough Akame points to then level up. And some people might say that's repetitive, but to be fair with you, what I tend to do, and this is something that I really enjoy, I just tend to just walk around Totembori and just fight thugs just for hours on end. I find it so intriguing because not every fight is going to be the same. Yes, it's going to be the same enemies, but you could take the fight in a different way because there's multiple fighting stances that you can use in this game. There is, I can't remember the name of the fighting stances. There's the Yakuza stance. I remember that. Yeah, I remember the Yakuza stance. And then there's this other one that's more, I don't know, could we call it the Daidoji dance? It's like one that he learned from his time in this Buddhist temple, which was very interesting. So you kind of have those two stances. I think one is more of like a defensive stance, mainly based on like kicking and actual like focus attacks. And the other one is just like this crazy Yakuza fighting style that we're used to in the Yakuza series, which, to be fair with you, I do prefer the Yakuza fight style, because it's just so much more badass and there's just so much you can do with that. There's these burst attacks as well, which is kind of like a Muso rage gauge. I'm sorry, I'm talking about Muso, but it's the only thing I know, guys, and I'm using that to compare it. It's like a Muso rage gauge and a Muso bar at the same time, because you fill up this bar with more attacks that you land, or you can regen it by drinking energy drinks and stuff like that. And then you just unleash like crazy attacks, crazy combos, really flashy looking attacks, but you deal a shit ton of damage. And it does help in battle situations. I'm playing the game on normal difficulty. I've never really found it as difficult because of the fact that you can health regen during a fight, which is the same like Yakuza Like a Dragon. So it's very similar to that in that sense. So literally you can pause in the middle of a fight. You could be nearing death. Never seen a game like this before. You could be nearing death and just drink a shit ton of energy drinks or eat like an onigiri or something, and your health goes back up. And that is interesting. I didn't necessarily expect it, and I would kind of like a little bit more challenge. Technically, yes, I could play it on hard difficulty. And to be fair with you, there are some elements of this game that, yes, if you want challenge in combat, then you can go to the Colosseum. Around chapter 2 or so, you get access to this Colosseum, which is basically a death match, right? It's Fight Club. That's literally what it is, and it's a casino. So people bet on your fights and stuff like that, but you don't get any commission off it. And it's a shame because although you do win a lot of money for doing Colosseum fights, I just would have liked to see you be able to bet against yourself. That would have been really cool. And I think what they could have done is that the more that you bet, the higher the difficulty multiplier would be. I think that would be a really cool a feature to have implemented. They didn't do that, but I think it would have been cool to sort of discourage you from betting on yourself, if that makes sense. I think that would be a really cool idea. Technically, at the same time though, like if you were going to do it, you would probably need an option to bet against someone or against yourself, and then in that point you can sort of fudge it up by losing. Besides the point, I think there should have been like a spectator mode where you can bet on people. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but there is a lot of other betting that you can do. You can play Go, you can play poker, you can play a bunch of different mini games in this game, which is very interesting. So there's karaoke, which is a Yakuza staple. There is pocket circuit racing, which I believe, I'm not sure if it was in any previous Yakuza games. The Cabaret Club, which is basically a hostess club. The Fighting Arena returns as well. So the Colosseum is something that returns. So there's the Cabaret Club. It is pretty interesting. In addition to that, you can play other games. So if you go to the arcades or if you go to Club Sega, you can play Virtual Fighter 2, Sonic the Fighters, which I've never played Sonic the Fighters. It's an arcade game. Never played it. Daytona USA 2, which is in this game known as Sega Racing Classic 2. I think probably they couldn't get the rights to the name, so they renamed it. Fighting Vipers 2, which I've never played before, but it's actually a really interesting game. I like the fact that within the Yakuza game, you can play all of these other titles, and I think that's probably because, well, Sega is a publisher, so they can kind of slip things in like that, which is pretty cool. Oh, I'm looking at it now. Apparently, there was never a US release for Fighting Vipers. Didn't know that. And this is a game that's 25 years after its initial release. That's insane, by the way. And it was on the arcade system Sega Model 3. Never heard of it, but it's on that, as well as the Dreamcast. So you can actually play this on the Dreamcast. I'm surprised, actually, that there is no other games within this series, because Fighting Vipers is actually a really good game. I actually really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than playing Virtual Fighter. I thought it was interesting. I am a big Virtual Fighter fan because of games like DOA, and obviously we've reviewed the Virtual Fighter remake that was actually done in the same engine as the Yakuza series, which is pretty cool. I think it's also done by the same studio as well. There's a bunch of different arcade games. Okay, you couldn't play Sega Mega games, but you could play Master System games, which I thought was interesting. I would have liked to have seen Sega Mega games be playable. You can play Alex Kidd in Miracle World, Alien Syndrome, Enduro Racer, Fantasy Zone 2, Tears of Opa Opa, Galaxy Force, Global Defense, Maze Hunter 3D, Quartet, Secret Command, as well as Flicky. Which is interesting. You can't play Sonic, but you can play Sonic the Fighters, which was also a very interesting game. Never knew that existed either. To be fair with you, I think this is sort of outside of my gaming era, because I was born in 94 and these games came out in 96 or so, and that Sonic Fighters game was built using the Fighting Vipers engine, so it's a pretty similar game in essence. Home console port for the Sega Saturn, and it was released again on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. When was this? I don't even remember that. It's an obscure novelty game. I think in all essence, a lot of the arcade games are very obscure. I think a lot of people would recognize games like Daytona USA 2 and then Virtual Fighter, as well as some other games as well, but I didn't understand and I didn't realize that Fighting Vipers or Sonic the Fighters were actual games. So I'm actually really intrigued by it. I kind of almost want to see Sega create this Fighting Vipers game again, like actually release it. Yeah, I do want to see them create a new Fighting Vipers game. I think that would be really cool. It's a game that never got released in the States, so this is going to be a lot of people's first time playing this game. So there's that. There's those sort of side missions that you could do, and that also kind of gives you a lot of stuff to do. Pocket racing, which I'm not. It's basically like Matchbox racing or like Scaletrix. I don't know how to pronounce it. People know what I'm talking about. If you live in the UK, you know about Scaletrix, right? So it's like that. That's literally what that is. It's really fun, but I don't want to spend that much time on it. Karaoke, how they pronounce it in Japanese. It's fantastic. I love it. I genuinely love it. And I love how you are basically introduced to all of these things through the Akame missions as well, because you need to do them to get Akame points, at least for the first time. So it's really fun, and it lets you do all that kind of stuff. You can play darts. I love playing darts. I like playing pool. It reminded me of playing Super Monkey Ball Deluxe on the PlayStation 2 and having those mini games, and that was just really fun, and it brought me back to a nostalgic place. So I'm excited about that. What I'm more excited about is the Cabaret Club, and let's take a moment. We'll take an ad break before we talk about the Cabaret Club. We'll go back on an ad and we'll talk about Cabaret Club in a moment. Now it's a better time than ever to be an anime fan with Crunchyroll, that has the world's largest anime collection. You can watch new episodes 1 hour after they air in Japan, enjoy access to unlimited ad-free anime, read hundreds of chapters across dozens of manga titles, and save with exclusive Crunchyroll store discounts. So if you guys go to crunchyroll.com/kunai, that's crunchyroll.com/kunai for your 14-day free trial of Crunchyroll Premium service. Remember, you guys, we love Crunchyroll. We use them on Kunai. I personally love them. I personally use them all the time. We've been going to Crunchyroll events for a long time sponsor of the podcast. And you know what? They are the best place to watch anime legally online, with over 30,000 episodes. And at the moment, if you're listening to this, they've got the largest fall lineup in history for fall 2022, with over 40 simulcasting titles. That is insane. So join Crunchyroll with our link, crunchyroll.com/kunai, for 14-day free trial. In addition to that, you've got different perks with your premium service. You can either go with your Mega Fan, you can go with Fan service, or your Mega Fan for 12 months. Personally, the biggest savings that you're going to make is if you do your Mega Fan option. If you live in the UK, that's only £60 a year. That's VAT inclusive. That's cheaper than any streaming service at the moment, especially if you're into anime. You got all your anime pretty much in one place. That's no ads, unlimited access to the Crunchyroll library, new episodes 1 hour after they air in Japan for your simulcasts, access to your digital manga, streaming on 4 devices at the same time, as well as offline viewing. You would not believe how many times offline viewing has saved me. Beyond the tube, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no 5G. I'm like, I want to watch anime. Boom! I'm watching Overlord. I'm watching Dr. Stone. I'm watching Naruto. I'm watching DBZ. You've got it all on Crunchyroll. So that's crunchyroll.com/kunai. That's crunchyroll.com/KUNAI. Back onto the episode. Are you a fan of anime and Japanese pop culture? I know I am. So why don't you get your asses down to Sugoi Mart? All right, that's sugoimart.com. Alternatively, you can use our link, getlifepodcast.com/Sugoi. That'll take you to our special link on Sugoi Mart. That is getlifepodcast.com/SUGOI. And use our code GALP, that is GALP, for 15% off on everything on Sugoi Mart. And you can use the code multiple times if you really love Sugoi Mart and you're like, hell yeah, I'm gonna go and purchase the best things that Japan has to offer. Food and drink, beauty items, collectibles, toys and games. You can actually buy Gunpla from Sugoi Mart, as well as a lot of things for your home. Kitchen appliances, bathroom, bedroom stuff. They've got these really lovely Spy Family campus notebooks. I'm a big fan of stationery, as you guys know, and they've got that there as well. There's some really cool stuff on here. You can also purchase experience sets, which is basically like kits to make matcha, to make onigiri, and they'll provide everything basically. Whatever you want, Sugoi Mart has got it. They've got a lot of really cool stuff from Japan, and as you guys know, every sort of month or so they give us a care package that we show off to you guys, which I think is pretty cool. So they've got really nice stuff included. They also sell Pokemon cards and a lot of genuinely hyped stuff. What we want to do is that we want to find out the weirdest things on the Sugoi Mart website and get Sugoi Mart to send them to us. So Sugoi Mart, if you're listening, let's prepare that. Let's just get the weirdest stuff and send it my way. And we'll talk about it on a episode of Umai. They've got some really, really nice stuff. If you want to get items from Japan quite easily, some really nice quirky items, then you can go to sugoimart.com, use the code GALP for 15% off on your purchase. They've got some really nice stuff, whether you're an anime fan, whether you're a fan of Japanese culture, or even if you're a fan of Disney. They've got a lot of Disney items on there. So experience Japan from the comfort of your own home with Sugoi Mart. Use the code GALP for 15% off. Thank you, Sugoi Mart, for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. And back on to the episode. Okay, hope you enjoyed that ad. We're going to talk about the Cabaret Club. It's very interesting because I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't even know this was a thing in Japan. And let me tell you something. It's interesting how this game has all of the things in Japan that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see. Like, it exposes you to a lot of things. Like, I didn't know a hostess club was a thing, or a cabaret club, and I went in and I'm like, oh my god, this is a dating simulator. That's basically what it is. At least that's how the game treats it. You basically go in, you pick a girl, there's a 10,000 yen fee, you speak to her, you learn about her, and you answer these situations. It's basically galge. That's literally what it is. Depending on your scenarios, you can level up your affection. There'll be like a small sort of story bit at the end, but you learn a lot of that about these characters. I've done all of the cabaret missions, by the way. Imagine, like, it tells me when it pops up, it's like only 0.7% of gamers have actually unlocked this achievement. I'm like, fuck. Am I a degenerate? Like, what the hell, bish? Like, is that the first thing you did? Yes, that's the first thing I did. I wanted to complete the cabaret missions. I made so much money in the game to the point where I got the achievements for like multi-millionaire and all that kind of stuff just to spend it on cabaret clubs. Because the first thing I do, go to the cabaret club, speak to someone, and just how you know, I suck at talking to people in general. So I'm like, oh shit, man, like, how do I fuck this up? And I do. I end up fucking it up because I pick like the most sort of cold answers, and that's just like, naturally, that's how I am for some reason. If you ever get to speak to me in real life, I'm so socially awkward. It's unreal, but besides the point. So I don't know how to interact in certain situations a lot of the time. So anyway, besides the point. So at the cabaret club, I was talking to some characters, some girls, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. I get to talk to them, get to learn more about their likes, their dislikes. Oh, imagine if I spend like half the episode just talking about the Cabaret Club. That would be so amazing. It'll be such a troll as well. Imagine people are expecting a proper review and I'm sitting here for 20 minutes fucking talking about this Cabaret Club. Anyway, Bish, stop getting distracted. Tell us more about the Cabaret Club. Okay, let me do that. So the way that the Cabaret Club works is that there's an introductory portion, like a question. You answer it, then you order a drink. Depending on the amount of money you spend, your affection can go up. There are items that you can hold previously, so you equip them, and it will make it better for you in the Cabaret Club. I believe there's like a bottle of perfume that gets you affection quicker and stuff. That's how I use all the time, so I recommend it. And then you can give the girls gifts. And depending on their personality, the gift that you give could give them more affection or not. So I tend to give gifts, but I find them at the pawn shop and I buy like rings and earrings and stuff like that. You know, that's what I tend to buy. There's 2 Cabaret Clubs in this game. There is the one in Osaka and there's the other one in the castle, which is the casino. That one, the gifts are really expensive. Like you could be paying 500,000 yen for like a ring or like a fancy watch or whatever. The gifts are expensive, but to be fair with you, the gifts, I find they tend to give you the same amount of affection anyway. It's mainly your answers that it's going to affect anything, and it's about learning a lot of people's personalities and stuff and their dreams, and you really get to know these women, if that makes sense. Like, it is fan service. I didn't necessarily see it as fan service. I find it was very interesting, and it might sort of spin off a separate conversation on the podcast about the need for galge and otome games and stuff like that, and we can talk about that in a future episode. But, and you know what, I'm hoping I get like other people on to talk about that, but I do want to talk about that in the future. So if that's an episode that you want to see, please let me know. Anyway, besides the point, oh my god, I'm going round in circles. I feel so embarrassed talking about this Cabaret Club. Jesus Christ. Anyway, back on the point, Cabaret Club. So I maxed it out and I noticed there was this one character in the first Cabaret Club. Her name is Kay. And I'm like, wait a minute, I recognize this lady. From somewhere. And the voice, I was like, no, there is no way that this is Kei-san from V Shoujo, aka Kiryu Koko, ex Hololive member. I'm like, there is no way that this is a VTuber, because I recognize the voice, and I'm like, obviously Kei-san does like streams with and without the VTuber model, so I recognized her a little bit, but I'm like, this can't be Kei-san. There's no way that this is Kei-san, right? Like, how is she in this game? And then she starts talking about how she's a streamer on Twitch, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? I was like shocked. I was like, no way. How did they get Kei-san in this game? And then I found out that there was like auditions that were being made for like 5 cabaret girls, and the winner of this competition gets to be I don't know if it's a playable character. In early 23, RGG Studio hosted Cabaret Club Grand Prix competition, in which 5 models were chosen to appear as live action hostesses for the Cabaret Club minigame in Like a Dragon Gaiden, while the Grand Prix winner is chosen to appear as an in-game character in Infinite Wealth. Amongst the 5 finalists, VTuber Kei-san won the Grand Prix. And you know what? Of course she won the Grand Prix, because her content is predominantly, at least in the past, right, when the Yakuza games came out, she would play them, right? So she's a big fan of the Yakuza series. I can't think of anyone better to win. To be fair with you, I don't know how they decided who won and whatnot, but it makes sense that she won. She can promote the game even more heavily, right? Because I'm pretty sure that she's probably live streaming the game right now and like talking to herself, rizzing herself up in the Cabaret Club, and then probably when Infinite Wealth comes out, if she is a playable character or whatever, we don't know this at the time, but she'll probably visit herself in the game, which I think would be really cool, really interesting. But yeah, so I was shocked. I was like, oh my god, it's Kei-san, and I kind of felt bad, because Kei-san is one of my favorite VTubers other than Iron Mouse. It's Iron Mouse and then Kei-san and then Korone. So I kind of felt bad that I didn't know. I didn't recognize Kei-san. I don't know. Kei-san, if you're listening, GG, I love you. It's so, I don't know. I'm just so happy. People might be watching this and thinking, Bish, you're such a fucking loser. I am. Okay, leave me alone. I like VTubers, alright? Leave me alone. And a lot of people like VTubers as well. I love them. Anyway, besides the point. So, the combat is fantastic. The gameplay is fantastic. Cabaret Clubs, 10 out of 10. That's the only reason to play this game. No, I'm joking. No, but seriously, Cabaret Clubs are cool. The side missions are really fun. A lot of people are saying the game is repetitive because of the side missions and because of the Akame sort of helping out the people, because it's pretty much they follow the same thing, right? Some of them are like fighting around town. Some of them are like fighting these gangs. And when you fight them, you gain additional characters to use in the deathmatch in the Colosseum, which is very interesting. I don't really pay much attention to that. I use that as a way to grind cash to spend on the cabaret clubs, guys. So, but seriously, I use it to grind points so I can get stuff from the Akame shop, right? Once I get a certain amount of cash, I can go and buy this sort of Eye of a Dragon, I think is what it's called. And it's an item that allows you to generate more Akame points from daily tasks or the Akame missions, right? So I will say this. The story is very intriguing, especially for someone that has never played any mainline Yakuza series. The level of content that you get in this game for £50 is astonishing, and it's a bargain. Even more of a bargain considering that this game is on Game Pass. And if you own an Xbox, right, I paid for 3 months of Game Pass, I paid £30. And this is Game Pass Ultimate, mind you. It's on Game Pass as well. You don't need to have Game Pass Ultimate. I just happened to get Game Pass Ultimate, but I paid for Game Pass Ultimate for 3 months. Was still cheaper than buying this game full price, which the game is already relatively cheap when you consider the prices of AAA games nowadays. You know, Call of Duty is like, what, £70 to buy the game digitally? It's insane. Not that we're talking about Call of Duty, but you know what I mean. So it's really good value for money. There is a lot of replayability. In fact, the game also gives you a demo, which I've never seen in games before. I've never seen like a preview or a demo. That was like PS2 era. Very nostalgic. They give you a demo for Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. They didn't need to do that. Is it an incentive for people to play the game? Yes, but I don't think it's that much of an incentive. I think maybe for the newer players, definitely. For people like me who doesn't really know who Kiryu is, he's a legend and I don't know him, right? Is it an incentive for them? Yes. But is it an incentive for people who have played the original Yakuza games? No, because they're already familiar with Kazuma, and you know, they've almost grew up with him, right? So it's like the incentive to play the game is him. And it's very interesting. There's a lot of customization that you can use. Not as much, like there's not that many suits that you can buy and stuff like that within the castle portion of the game, within the casino. You can buy some suits, you can buy some different makeup and all that kind of stuff, which is fun, but it's not as customizable as a game like Yakuza Like a Dragon. And I think that's by design. It's a spin-off game. It literally says it in the title, right? Like a Dragon Gaiden. It's a side story. Do I recommend this game to everyone? Yes, hell yeah. Buy the game now if you don't own a Xbox. If you own an Xbox, Game Pass it, man. Just get Game Pass and just play the game. And while you're at it, play the rest of the Yakuza series. We are going to have a more in-depth discussion about this game in detail. This was just like a first impressions almost. Consider this a review roundup. And in fact, that's what this is. This is a review roundup. So buy the game right now. Fork out your 50. Although these games tend to go and sell quite quickly. But that's not the point. Buy it now. You need to play it. Play it before Infinite Wealth if you are a Yakuza fan. You don't really need to be fair. I enjoyed it without knowing much about the series. And you know what? It's made me think, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back and I'm going to give the rest of the series a go. I'm going to play Kiwami 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to go all the way through Yakuza to play this series. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play Yakuza for that reason. Just because I fell in love with the characters. I really like Kazuma as a character. He's really cool. Do I like him more than Ichiban? We'll have to wait and see. I don't know Kazuma Kiryu that well, so I don't know. I think at the moment Ichiban is number one, of course, because his name is Ichiban, but I think at the same time he is my favorite character. But that's just because I'm new to the series, guys, okay? I'm learning more about this series. I'm learning more about these Japanese games that I never got to play in my childhood, right? I never got to play games like Yakuza. When I was younger, I didn't play Persona, which I finally did with Persona 4 Golden on the PS Vita, right? So, and then I went back to play Persona 3 and Persona 5, and I played all the rest of the Persona games. So I consider myself a big Persona fan, and I'm hoping that playing Like a Dragon and playing Like a Dragon 7 and playing Like a Dragon Gaiden is going to get me into the rest of the series. And I think that's beautiful. And that's something that I also want to mention. The fact that these games are on Game Pass. I keep on mentioning it. But if it wasn't for Game Pass, I don't think I'd ever be introduced to this series at all. We reviewed it on the podcast. I never wanted to play the Yakuza series ever. had no interest in it, and do a lot of wonders when you give someone a game for free, almost. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a game that I never got code for myself. Jacob obviously got codes for the Yakuza series in the past, so thank you, Sega, for that. But it's a series that I had no interest in, and because of Game Pass, I have interest in it. And because of that, it's almost made me have such an appreciation for Microsoft and Game Pass in general. And yes, Game Pass is not the best service. There's not that many games that I do want to play. You know, there will be a lot of stuff that a lot of people want to play. Don't get me wrong. Halo, Gears of War, there's EA Play, that kind of stuff. There is a lot of stuff within that. Wild Hearts is also on there now, if you have Game Pass Ultimate. But there's a lot of games within those series and those franchises that you could play and you could enjoy, but there wasn't that many Japanese titles. Of course, there was Persona 5 Royal that got removed. There's Persona 3 and Persona 4 portable versions, so Golden and Persona 3 Portable, which is on Game Pass currently. There's Persona 5 Tactica, which is currently on Game Pass as well. Persona 3 Reload, which is a brand new game. It's going to be on Game Pass day one. And in fact, I've already pre-installed it. So hell yeah. So that's why I love Game Pass. And I think if you are an Xbox gamer, please, please, please invest in Game Pass, whether it's your standard Game Pass or Game Pass Ultimate. Don't invest in Game Pass Core, because I believe Game Pass Core is basically Xbox Live Gold. You're not really going to get as much games. I think you get like 4 games to play or something. You're not going to get the full library. So if you want the full library, go for Game Pass Ultimate. I like how I'm talking about more about Microsoft Game Pass and Xbox Game Pass more than my actual sponsors, which is pretty insane. The sponsors are not going to like it. Microsoft, if you're listening, please sponsor us. We can do something. Anyway, I think I spoke more about the Cabaret Club. I'm going back to this Cabaret Club. Jeez. I think I spoke more about this Cabaret Club than the actual game. Go and play the game, see it for yourself, enjoy the game. Combat is good, location's fantastic, the story is okay, not the best, but I feel that if you are someone that is playing the Yakuza series in general, this is the game made for you. It's a spin-off game. It's a game that you're gonna know how to play. You're gonna love it. It's got a lot of sort of new features, updates, especially to the gameplay style, so combat especially. So this game is intended for people that are super fans of the series, that want to get any sort of content. I kind of see it as like obviously it's a side story, but I kind of see it as like the Extreme Legends, you know, kind of like a Shinsangoku Musou Extreme Legends, Dynasty Warriors Extreme Legends. That's what this game is. It's basically additional content. Could it have been DLC? Maybe. But I kind of feel that this is a game that I've spent already 40 hours in it, and I've felt that I've got my money's worth, and I've never played a game in recent years, right, that made me feel so joyful on the inside, and it made me feel like a badass, you know what I mean? Like playing as Kazuma and just like beating the shit out of people. I'm not saying that I'm going to do that in real life, but like beating the shit out of like Yakuza members. That's so cool. Like you can't do this stuff in real life. You get killed, but it's fun to pretend almost, right? It's fun to sort of do all of these things that you can't do in real life or have consequences in real life, you know, like playing poker. Like, you know, I don't want to like lose like my kid's college fund or what. I don't have a child, but you know what I mean. But like, I don't want to like lose my kid's college fund by like playing poker and like losing like everything, you know what I mean? But you can do it in this game. There's no real consequences, which is really fun. So I guess that's what gaming is about, right? It's about an escapism. It's about escapism, right? I've been talking on for 45 minutes. It's funny though, because they say Gaiden's playtime is supposed to be 10 to 20 hours. And when you think about it like that, it is a bit of a ripoff, right? 10 to 20 hours, you're paying $50. You're paying, actually no, not $50. You're paying £50 for 10 to 20 hours. I've already spent 40 hours in the game and I haven't even fucking completed it. All right. And this is just the first impressions. We're going to go in depth in a future episode with Jacob, and we're going to talk about this game in detail when he gets to play the game. And we're also going to be playing, we're also going to be talking about Like a Dragon 7, as well as the future games. And I'm going to go through, I'm going to play Ishin, I'm going to play Kiwami, all the way to Yakuza 6. So, yeah, boy. That is the end of this episode. Hope you guys enjoy it. Remember, you can follow us on X at GAL Podcasts. In addition to that, you can join our Discord, GetALifePodcast.com/Discord, as well as checking out our sponsors, Crunchyroll and Sugoima. And you know what? If you love this episode, give it a 5-star rating. Really does support the show. So thank you very much. Yeah, anyway, thank you guys. Bye.